let's do this assignment. And for the first one, you need to find out. So the first one, you need to complete the table and based on the angle x. So the first table, you need to find the opposite AC, opposite side, adjacent side, and the hypotenuse. And the second one, you need to find the sine, cosine, and the tangent. Let's do. I will write the answer next to the triangle, and for A the x is for A and this is the angle for the opposite, so this one is the opposite, and for the agent for the agent is the next one, the longest is the hypotenuse. So the sine is df, opposite divides to the hypotenuse ef, and for the cosine is de dy hypotenuse ef, and the tangent is df, the opposite divide adjacent. And for B, and this angle is the x, so the opposite is PR, so this is opposite, and the longest is hypotenuse, and the rest is adjacent side. Okay, and for here the sine is PR divides to PQ, so it's opposite divide hypotenuse, and for cosine it's adjacent RQ divide hypotenuse PQ, and for the tangent is opposite divides to adjacent, so it's PR divide RQ. Let's look at C. And see, this is the angle, so opposite, and for the longest is the hypotenuse, so the MN is hypotenuse, and for the last one is adjacent, and for the sine is opposite, so ML divide MN, and for the cosine is LN divide, and for the tangent, so it's opposite to divides to the adjacent, so it's ML divide L. For D, so this one is the angle, so this is the opposite, and then the longest is hypotenuse, and the rest one is adjacent. Okay, and for the sine is opposite EC divide hypotenuse AB, and for the cosine is adjacent AC divide hypotenuse AB, and for the tangent is BC, the opposite divides to adjacent AC. And for E, this one is the angle, and this one is the opposite, and the longest is hypotenuse, and the last one is adjacent. And then for the sine is opposite divides to adjacent, so it's RO divide SR. And for the cosine is adjacent, SO divide hypotenuse SR. And for the tangent is RO, opposite divides adjacent, SO. Let's look at F. For the F, this one is the angle, and for this one is the opposite. For the longest line side is hypotenuse, and the last one is adjacent. Okay, and sine is opposite xz divides to xy, and the cosine is yz divides to xy, and for the tangent is xz divides yz. And for G, and this one is angle, and this one is the opposite. Longest is hypotenuse, and the rest one is adjacent. For sine is opposite, YH divides to hypotenuse YW, and the cosine is adjacent, and the WH divides to hypotenuse and YW. And for the tangent is YH, opposite divides to adjacent, so it is WH. And for the last one, and this is the angle, and this one is the opposite, and this one is the hypotenuse, and the last one is adjacent. And for the sine is opposite, EG, and divides to the hypotenuse is EF. And for the cosine is adjacent, GF divides to hypotenuse EF. And the last one is tangent, the opposite, e.g. dy is to adjacent gf. Okay. Okay, let's look at number 2. On each triangle, mark the hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent, and for the angle A, and determine the trigonometric ratio associated with the angle A. So the A is, this is angle A, and for this part of 4 is opposite side, and the longest one is the hypotenuse. The last one is adjacent. Okay. And for the cosine ratio, it's adjacent divide hypotenuse, and for the tangent, it's opposite divide adjacent. And for B, and this is the angle, and this one is the opposite, and then the longest is hypotenuse, and the last one is adjacent. Okay, and for the sine is 12, the opposite divides to hypotenuse, and the cosine is adjacent divide hypotenuse, and the tangent is opposite divide adjacent. Okay. Last one, this is the angle, and this one is the opposite, and then the longest is hypotenuse, and the last one is adjacent. So the first one, opposite divides to hypotenuse, 21 divide 20, and adjacent. Next one, cosine is adjacent divide hypotenuse, and the last one is opposite divide adjacent. Number 3, and determine as a fraction in simplest form, and this one, don't forget, simplified the fraction and the value of the trigonometry ratio indicator. Okay, the first one, cosine ratio for the angle A, so we need a cosine, so this is the opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent. If you can find the side directly, you can just find it. If you don't find it, you can just mark all the 3 sides and then do the rest. And for the cosine A is adjacent, 8 divide hypotenuse is 8 over 17. For B, and for B, and for the, this is opposite, and this is adjacent, and this is hypotenuse. And for the sine, B is opposite divides to hypotenuse. And for C, this one is the opposite, and the longest one is the hypotenuse, and the next one is the adjacent, or the last one. And for the tangent, C is opposite 6 divide 8. And is it done? No. And we need to simplify it, and we cancel 2 on the top and the bottom, so it's 3 over 4. And for the last one, this is the angle and the opposite, and then for the longest is hypotenuse, and the rest one is adjacent. Okay, and for this one, sine. Sine D is opposite 1.2 divides to 1.5, and we need to simplify it, and so we can divide 0.3. So this is 4, this is 5, so this is 4 over 5. Okay, number 4. And on the triangle, marked hypotenuse opposite adjacent for the angle x, and determine the value of sine x, cosine and tangent x. And write each answer as a decimal and to the nearest hundredth. Okay, and don't forget, round your answer at the end for the last steps. And for this one, and this is angle, and this is opposite, and the longest is the hypotenuse, and the last one is adjacent. So sine equals to 7 over 25, and it's 0.28. And for the cosine x is 24 over 25, so it's 0.96. And the last one, tangent x equals to 7 over 24, so the answer is 0.29. And the last, number 5, and in this triangle, determine the exactly value of sine, cosine, and the tangent. And for this part, and for the exactly value, we just need fraction. Okay, don't find out the decimal. Okay, just remember, you only need fraction. And for tangent B, and for this one, sine B, and this one is B. Okay, so this is B, and then this one is opposite, and the longest is hypotenuse, and the last one is adjacent. And for sine B is opposite, 48 divides to 73, and then cosine B is adjacent, 55 divides to hypotenuse, 73, and tangent B is opposite 48 divides to adjacent 5. Okay. Number 6, and in each triangle determine the value of sine x, cosine x, and the tangent in the simplest rational form. In the simplest rational form. For the first one, and so is for the sine is first one, this is opposite, and this is the hypotenuse, and this is adjacent. Okay, so it's more 41, and the cosine is 41 over 40 over 41, and the tangent is opposite divides to adjacent. And for B, this is opposite, this is hypotenuse. Now I just write one number because we don't have enough space here. Okay, the last one is A, and then the sine is opposite 24 40. And is that done? No. Simplified. We need to simplify this one. So, and we divide 8, so it's 3 over 5. And the next one, cosine is 32 divided 40, and then we cancel 8, so it's 4 over 5. And the last one is opposite 24 over 32, and still we cancel 8, so this one is 3 over 4. And the C, and the opposite, and then the hypotenuse, and then for the adjacent. Okay, and this is an opposite divides to hypotenuse, and adjacent divide hypotenuse, and the last one is opposite divide adjacent. And for D, opposite and hypotenuse and adjacent, and the opposite divide hypotenuse, and the opposite divide hypotenuse, and the opposite divide adjacent. And for E, so this is opposite, this is hypotenuse, this is adjacent, and the sine is opposite divide hypotenuse, 45 divide 53, and next one is adjacent divide hypotenuse, 28 divide 53, and the last one is opposite divide adjacent. Okay, the last one, and for this part is opposite, and the longest is hypotenuse, the rest one is adjacent. So this is R, opposite divide hypotenuse is Q, and adjacent divide hypotenuse, and for the last one is opposite divide adjacent. The last one of today. In each case, write a rational number which represent the trigonometric ratio. Okay, and sine A. And for here, normally we will have x here, but this one is A, so A means this angle. Or also if in the exam, maybe you will see angle VAP, and they will sine angle VAP still the same, okay? So sine A opposite and 5, and the hypotenuse is 13, so it's 5 over 13. And for B, cosine B, so this is B, and B opposite, hypotenuse and adjacent, 16 over 20. So is it done? And no, we need to simplify this one, so we cancel the 4, so it's 4 over 5. The last one, tangent x, and for this one, and for x, so this is x, and the opposite, so this is square root 2, and so this is square root 2, and opposite, so this is adjacent, square root 2, so this is 1. And also remember, if you find a right triangle and this one, the tangent is 1, which means this one is 45 degree and this one is 45 degree. Okay, so if you have any questions, leave in the comments. Okay, thank you.